Welcome everyone to Inform New Hampshire. We broadcast here in Manchester, Channel 23, Mondays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays. We also have a YouTube channel called Inform New Hampshire, and we have a Facebook page, Inform New Hampshire, as well. Feel free to stop by there and hit the like button and subscribe if you will. And Richie's over here to my far right, is a fellow state coordinator with me at the National Liberty Alliance. National Liberty Alliance is a grassroots organization nationwide committed to reinstating the common law grand juries into each of our counties in the country. And we hold weekly meetings here in Manchester. Anyone is welcome. You can find out more information about that either on the National Liberty Alliance website, or you could email us on the email on your screen. Today we have a guest with us, Mr. Bill Goulette, who is a state representative for Hillsborough County District 23. And we are going to talk about educational opportunities for the general public along the vein of historical and governmental history, which has brought us to the place where we are now. We're talking about the type of education you will not find in mainstream media, nor will you find it at colleges or universities around the country. We're talking about real historical occurrences that is oftentimes kept in secret. So, Richie, before we start, do you want to mention the Jerry DeLamus situation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To the best of my ability.
All right.
We just had a fundraiser for Jerry Saturday in Rochester. It turned out to be very well. It was a good number of people there. I don't know how many there were, 70, 80, 100, I'm not sure. But anyway, if you want to continue to give to Jerry on a regular basis or whatever, there is an address you can give to. It's www.patriotjerry.com, and go on YouTube and check out Jerry's situation. Just type in Jerry DeLamus. His videos will come up, documentaries that he did out there. You'll have a better understanding as how he's being railroaded. He's currently in the Henderson City Jail in Nevada and has been there for over 2 months. So I'm sure his wife and him would appreciate any financial assistance you can give him, or moral support. And to go one step further, pray for him. I'm sure he needs that also. With that, I'll turn it back to Dean and Bill.
Thank you, Richie. Before I forget, and I don't want to be rushed at the end, I just want to mention that my good friend and co-host here, Richie Merritt, is running for sheriff in Hillsborough County. And Richie would be, in my estimation, one of the finest constitutional sheriffs that we could possibly bring on board for we the people. Richie understands and is committed to protecting the constitutional or the fundamental rights of we the people, and he's an expert on the Constitution. So for those of you who are registered voters or would be registered voters in Hillsborough County, we hope that you'll consider Richie's candidacy, and you'll hear more about that in the future. So, Bill, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come share with us, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say, and I guess you have some information that you want to share with us regarding educational opportunities for the people to inform themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I like to treat things as kind of like sitting in someone's living room and talking about it.
Sure.
Because I think that makes it easier to absorb.
All right.
Also makes it easier for me to speak, because if
All
I
right.
think about being on a camera, I might start to stammer and stutter.
It gets a little weird. Yeah.
It could get ugly, right?
Yeah.
So I've been a state rep now for almost 2 years, elected by Milford, New Hampshire. And prior to becoming state rep, I realized there was quite a bit of information that I needed to start picking up and learning. And what I discovered was the more I got into the information that was available, and not just what one might consider the mainstream, I realized that there were some things that presented more questions than answers.
Okay.
I had a few friends that I kind of met along the way as I was running for office, and then once I got into office, kept the education flowing, And what I realized is the amount of information that one doesn't know is really remarkable. I don't consider myself to be the most well-informed, but certainly not the least. And I realized that the more I shared the information that I had with people who I expected should know,
Right.
they either didn't know sincerely or feigned lack of knowledge. Either are pretty terrible in my opinion. So I decided I should probably start becoming something of an expert on these topics, at least for myself. Now, I'm, again, by no means an expert, but I certainly feel more well prepared than probably 98% of the citizens out there. And when I say citizens, I'm really referring to the people. I'd like to start by pointing something out to the audience that they may not know about New Hampshire. The New Hampshire Revised Statutes Annotated, RSAs, commonly referred, have this one RSA in them that is actually quite interesting. If you hear me use the term people or person, I'm doing my best to use that term very specifically. The people are not the same as a person. A person is very frequently considered to be something of not the living man or woman, but rather a corporate entity, a franchise, a non-living entity. How do we know this? If we look at New Hampshire RSA 21:9, yeah, you can look it up. I prefer that anybody listening to this not take my word for any of it, but take a few moments, go out, check it out for yourself. It can be found fairly quickly. 21:9 defines a person, particularly as it relates to the motor vehicle licensing. It says that a person is a body corporate, a body politic, or an individual. Now, if you listen to that, you're probably catching the same thing I caught, which was corporate, maybe not corporate. And so when we refer to a person, very frequently, we are not referring to the living man or woman. We are, in fact, referring to the juridic person. That's a term that's commonly understood or known in law.
Juridic.
Juridic, or even juristic in some cases.
Spell that. How's that?
Juridic, I believe, is the proper
look that one up.
spelling.
Okay.
Okay? And the juridic person is the person that would normally walk into a court and...
Unknowingly, right?
Well, unknowingly or otherwise, that's the person who presents themselves in a court. Supreme Court case in 1795, not well known, can't say most of us read that much in that era, actually identified the fact that courts and corporations are all creations of the mind of man, and they do not have parity with the living, breathing person, or the living, breathing man or woman. There's that word person. It creeps into our everyday vernacular, and we use it like we know what it means. In fact, we're not really using it correctly. But the point is, that Supreme Court case in 1795, you just check out Supreme Court case 1795, you'll see it in your Google search or your DuckDuckGo search or Smart Page search, whatever you happen to use.
Smart Page.
The Smart Page.
Love it.
So the fact is, when you realize that a living man or woman really cannot be handled by a court that we have today, Hillsborough County courts, local district courts, things of that nature, it begins to make one scratch their head and say, well, what is going on? Well, the person that walks in the court is in fact just that, a person. It is a juridic person. And if you look at Black's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition, and you look up person, you're going to see that it kind of starts defining what you think is a regular natural man or woman, living, breathing. Then it says except, and you got this little clause at the end, last couple of sentences, defining what a person really is.
Quick question.
Yes.
How does the court, even if the human being that walks in there is not aware of the two different identities, the living being and then the person, the juridic person, how does the court identify? What did they use to identify that juridic? What do you call it? Juridic what?
Juridic person.
Person.
That's right.
Okay. Yep.
Well, they assume you're the juridic person, and quite frankly, most people assume they're the juridic person too.
How do they ID it?
They will generally call your name.
Yep.
And you will say yes. You, by the way, is a singular and plural term. Another very cautionary tone around how you use the word you, Y-O-U.
Okay.
And once you say, you identify yourself with that name that they've mentioned, you are now in contract. You have now come into agreement with who they say you are. And you
But
have...
I'm searching for the unique way that they deal with that name, which is what? All caps?
Well, it is all caps.
Yep.
And you can certainly see that when you get the envelope
Yep.
in the mail from the court system or from the
Requesting your presence.
Requesting your presence, summoning you, yes, indeed.
Yes.
So anyway, this was one piece of information that I learned as I was coming up into the ranks, as it were.
Very alarming.
It was at first interesting and then disturbing,
Yeah.
the way the people are being manipulated. In fact, it was disturbing enough to make me do some more research, and actually I put a couple of bills out in this past session that were by the committee identified as inexpedient to legislate, in many cases by all or the vast majority. Interestingly, if we have time, I'll get into those. But the point is, I had a lot of education I had to come up to speed on. So it's now 12 minutes into our time here, kind of a long-winded background as to how I found myself in a position to need information. Some of the websites that I came across that were interesting are also questionable. I found myself suddenly looking at websites that were termed by the various so-called law enforcement agencies in the state and in the country as sovereign citizen websites. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. I've had friends mention this to me before, and I've kind of thought about it like, well, that's kind of dumb. I don't really like that too much, until I started reading into it. And then someone said, can you be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time?
My understanding is you can't.
You really can't, apparently.
Yeah.
You know? So with that being said, either you're a sovereign or you're a citizen, because citizen implies that you are subject to somebody. Hence, you're not sovereign. Otherwise, if you're sovereign, you're not a citizen. Now, you might be in a society, and there are societies out there. But that society, those societies I refer to really are private societies if you're doing this right? Mm-hmm. You're not in a quote-unquote public society. So some of the places where one can go to find information. Obviously, YouTube. You can start with a variety of different organizations. And I brought my laptop here, not to be rude and have it sitting in front of me as if I'm not interested in the people I'm speaking with, but because most of the time I have all of my information here. If you're smart, you're going to start, like me, printing this stuff out so that you can have it without internet connection. So some of the places that I would go to on the internet that I found to be particularly interesting, believe it or not, years ago I started with Alex Jones, and he's kind of a bombastic individual, very fun to listen to and watch, a little repetitive at times, but excellent information. He's very much putting on a show, but very much has great information that at least starts you in the right direction, gets you thinking about the possibilities.
I love when he goes down one of his historical rants about something, and he goes into depth into the history of certain situations. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. It is fun. He generally is quite accurate in a lot of the things that he's working up. Then I heard of this fella by the name of David Roach. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting. And I went out there, and believe it or not, both on YouTube and Facebook, David Roach has some very interesting information. R-O-A-C-H.
Okay.
Now, David Roach has been in what I commonly refer to as the freedom movement for some time now. And he has identified some pretty clear documentation that just about anybody can grab, read through, educate themselves with. If they're not sure, get together with a few other people. There are lots of different groups and such on the internet which get together and examine these things. In fact, one was just Skyping me a moment ago. And so that would be, my apologies for this, Lighthouse Law Club. That's an organization of people in affiliation that there's a membership due. And some of these places, they need the cash flow, and so they're looking for some kind of dues, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. A workman is worthy of their hire, and I believe that is a maxim of law. So we want to make sure we respect people with the time and energy that they spend, and so
Value for value.
Oh, exactly.
As Ayn Rand would say.
How about that? Yeah, and so we've got the Lighthouse Law Club, and they meet on Monday nights, and generally speaking, have very interesting topic matter, and often open the time up for a question and answer after the fact. And so I'd encourage you to maybe get a soft start there.
Is that a conference call?
It is a conference call. It's
Okay.
also a Skype group. It's also a Facebook group.
Okay.
And it's also a YouTube channel.
Okay.
So you're going to find a lot of the people who are involved in this sort of thing, and people being the operative term, of course, are it really is. You start thinking about this, like, you don't realize how many times you use words incorrectly and inaccurately.
Right.
Anyway, Monday nights you can get on the conversation and enjoy the topic matter there. The fellow who kind of runs that, his name is Mark Emery. He's written a few books. They're available, onefreemanswar.com, I think it is. Let me just go out there and take a quick look. Yeah, One Free Man's War. Let me put in .org.
That's his book or the website?
That's actually the website.
Okay. .org?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Actually, it's .com, sorry.
Okay.
And so he's got a couple of different books out there that you might find useful, coming up to speed on. Another resource, I mean, obviously the various channels of Facebook and YouTube are useful. Mm-hmm. Another resource is Anna von Reitz, which I imagine you've mentioned on this show more than one time.
Love her.
She's got certainly a very educational perspective, have put out a couple of books, and one of them was written in such a way where I think even my 12-year-old could understand it, which is important because the amount of de-education, can I call it that occurs in our schools today, really does
Hinder.
It hinders, it places hurdles in front of people that many cannot overcome.
Indoctrination would be a better word, I think.
Well said. The mindset, for myself, I think one of the largest battles I had was overcoming the mindset of 40-some-odd years of learning things that weren't exactly true. I had a problem with this whole notion of being misinformed by those you trust the most. That will tend to shake people to the core. In fact, it'll shake them so much, in many cases, they won't even bother looking any further.
Right.
They get so shaken up.
Normalcy bias kicks in.
Oh,
Yeah.
my word. And suddenly...
I've gone through that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You go through a grieving process.
Yes.
It really is a grieving process. And I can tell you, my wife, God bless her, is fully supportive of what I do. But I like the way she says it. She says it very well. I have children to take care of. I have to think about macaroni and cheese and laundry. I don't have time to think these big thoughts. Appreciate it, but let me stay my course while you stay yours.
Takes a team, yeah.
It really does. It
Yeah.
really does. So that's kind of the approach I take in my home life. For all of the listeners who might be thinking, yeah, that's great for you, but what's your home life like?
Right.
It's not always easy
Yep.
to be able to learn and adjust your thinking when you're around others who are close to you. Yeah. Another good website that I would recommend is Gemstone University. Now, it seems that the vast majority of there's that term, vast majority. I apologize if I overuse that. The vast majority of the freedom movement sites out there are frequently in conflict with one another in terms of the materials and the so-called facts. I find it disturbing when I have someone telling me this is the way it works, and then it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Suddenly you spend all this energy and time that you really don't have, because as I think the three of us sitting at this table know, time is extremely short. And so we're looking to maximize the learning energy
Absolutely.
and get the most out of the time we spend. Particularly when you have a family. I've got children, and I don't want to be spending all my time in front of a computer learning things. I want to try to concentrate the learning during a period of time, and then walk away and continue the rest of my life, because the rest of life moves forward. So gemstoneuniversity.org has a whole series of videos, and along with the videos, they've got links to the documentation.
Okay.
Very, very good for a base understanding of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Take it a step further for those folks who start realizing, hey, I'm in the wrong theater. I got to get out of this theater into the right one.
Yeah.
Theater being something of a fun term, saying I'm somehow associated with this group. How did I get associated with them? I need to get out. Gemstone University does a fine job of walking people through it. David Roach is a great guy. He started me in a lot of this information.
Mm-hmm.
He does so at his own cost. He doesn't ask for any money. Many people are out there that are like that. Glenn Winningham is another one like that. I would encourage you, again, Glenn Winningham, David Roach, if you find their materials useful, and you very likely will. Glenn Winningham is another bombastic individual who is very passionate about his message. They accept donations and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Gemstone, that is another monthly fee involved in that. Let me restate that. It's not a fee. It's a contribution.
Okay.
All right, so they have a contribution, a monthly contribution they expect you to make in order to be able to facilitate the educational process. I feel like a salesperson when I say that. Bear in mind, I'm not supporting any of these organizations from a sales perspective. If I enjoyed them, I'm sharing them with you, and it's up to the listener to weed through that and make sure they're in agreement before they go and sign up for a $500 or something
Sure.
membership.
Yep.
All right. So Gemstone University is another great organization. One of the things that they do on top of the monthly contribution is they offer. It's in addition to, they offer a private contract and setting up of a trust. And not just any trust, you have a plain trust, and then you have an international trust.
Mm-hmm.
And these are very valuable. If there are corporate individuals listening to me as I'm stating this, they're thinking, trust, I've paid quite a bit perhaps for an attorney to create a trust for me, and an international trust at that is even more value. So again, value for value.
Mm-hmm.
What we have here is, depending upon what you want to spend, you can spend anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 with Gemstone University, and have them help you build out your trust.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Emery will also build out, has a couple of documents that you can use, the books, and you can build your trust based on that. There's a variety of different approaches. But the point is, why would one need a trust or need to identify themselves as a private citizen? Because until you do, you're assumed to be a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, trading your privileges or trading your rights in turn for privileges that the civil society provides you.
That's a great point to make here, because when we thought, what was the president's name?
Which one?
In the Civil War.
Lincoln.
Lincoln. When we thought Lincoln was freeing the slaves, he was actually changing the terms for which they were slaves and including all the whites and everyone else into a new slavery system called the 14th Amendment citizen. Correct?
Well,
something like that?
The 14th Amendment passed when? When was the 14th Amendment ratified?
68, I believe.
Okay. And right before then was a little-known public law which allows for expatriation. It's called the Expatriation Act. So it's interesting to note that you've got the Expatriation Act one day before the final ratification of the 14th Amendment.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
I didn't know that.
That's true.
And so when you look at that, if you're like me, you think to yourself, someone's slipping something just under the wire on that one. And sure enough, that does appear to be exactly what was done. Another organization out there, which, and I say this in cautionary tones again, vet these organizations for yourself, please. Eric John Phelps wrote a book called Vatican Assassins. Interesting book all in itself. I won't go down the trail of the Vatican. Other people are much more well educated and prepared to broach that topic. For myself, though, I found the skimming of that information very interesting. Eric John Phelps has a whole curriculum as well that he is selling for those who want to put in what he refers to, I think, as their privatization papers, and also establish a trust. There's this thing about the trust, which is really designed to protect the private citizen. So when you engage corporations, you don't engage them directly, you engage them through the trust. And that way the trust is the buffer for that. So another organization that, again, will take the time to educate you. Now, in that instance, he likes to do like weekend events down in Pennsylvania, which is about right around where he comes from.
All right, we're getting low on time, but tell me some of the things that these educational opportunities will help to enlighten people about.
Sure. When I gave testimony in front of the Judiciary Committee around the what's termed the redefinition of the motor vehicle.
Yep.
I made mention to them that I got my passport as a state citizen and not as a U.S. citizen. Yes, I got it in under 2 weeks too. I can tell you where I got that. Point is, I didn't realize the benefit of what you have until you realize you start pulling these things off. And so the upshot is you begin to realize you actually have more rights, and you retain your rights, and you have more latitude as a private citizen than you do as a public or corporate citizen.
Sure.
And making that distinction is key, because as you learn more and as you become the actual living man or woman, apart from your all caps name, you have a certain freedom that you can walk in, and we don't have time to expand on that.
We have a mutual friend who the judges won't even allow him in the courtroom because he's achieved that status, and they can't do anything with him.
Right. And not just achieves it. It's not just form. The Gemstone University has a great notion: form versus substance.
Right.
Form is the documentation. That's great. Anybody can put their name, cut and paste their name in there. But do you understand the argument? And that's the substance component. That's why Gemstone, I think, is probably the finer tool out there, because you can take the time to absorb it and learn. It takes probably 6 to 12 months for someone to get what they need to out of that.
Okay. All right. Well, we have just a couple minutes left. Is there anything you want to throw in for our viewers to wrap it up?
Get yourself educated. It is not easy. It does take time. It takes some commitment. If you are interested at all in discovering who you are, apart from who people say you are, and apart from what governments say you are, you must take the time to educate yourself. Consider it this way: your children are worth it. Yep. Learn who you are so you can teach them who they are.
Now, Richie and I have participated in a 120-hour course on the National Liberty Alliance website, which is a hodgepodge of some of the different trainers out there that you're referring to. And Richie's completed it. I think you've done it twice, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yep, that's a very valuable training. On our YouTube channel, down below, I have a little information spot where I put a bunch of places to do research. May I add some of your
of course,
your things down there to put on there for people to look at?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're pretty close to wrapping it up. I want to reiterate that the National Liberty Alliance is at nationallibertyalliance.org. The civics course is what I was referring to, which is 120 hours of different leaders or educators in the alternative, I guess you would say, history of the United States. It's very valuable. It would get you someplace fast. But thank you so much, Bill, because this is fantastic to be able to. And I remember you mentioning to me Gemstone University, and I have to apologize I didn't get there. But
all right.
We do have Anna von Reitz on our little list, and I didn't know about the Expatriate Act, but I keep hearing in the news once in a while more Americans expatriate than ever, and I'm wondering to myself, what exactly are they doing? Do you have the 20-second recap on that?
Well, I'm sure it's varied to be, without a doubt. But I want to say that the vast majority of so-called U.S. citizens who expatriate are in fact looking to free themselves from the contractual commitments, implied or explicit, that they've engaged in through their lives as a U.S. citizen,
Yep.
14th Amendment U.S. citizen.
And a lot of that, sorry, that's my timer. A lot of that has to do, I think we better wrap it up. I want to keep going, but I can't. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. And listen, I'm
welcome.
glad you were here for more than one reason, but I didn't have to talk too much, so thank you.
Have a great day. Hope come and join us next week.